Guys, this is going to be episode 2 of Ignorance is Chris. The first, not such a big hit at the moment, but there's time will tell. Anyway, episode 2. It's less angry this time. Yeah, it's less hate. But today we were asked to, in Japanese, but be that as it may, we were discussing the differences in terms of a country's philosophies on how to recycle, how to dispose of rubbish. Bit of a dull task, one might think, but actually it provoked some rather interesting discussion. So in Japan, my experience so far has been that bins essentially don't exist in the traditional sense. In any typical classroom, there will not be a bin. It's very, very strange. Furthermore, even on the streets, there's really nothing for a long time, and only when you get to like a train station or somewhere really quite official will you see a cluster of bins. But there won't be just, it's not just one bin, it's several, they're colour coded, and there are strict rules that apply to how you dispose of the rubbish there. So this begs the question here, how environmentally conscious are Japan? Well, I suppose there's evidence to suggest that they are, the way that they enforce separation and that kind of thing. And the streets around Japan, in all of my experience, and I've been to a few different cities now in Japan, very, very clean. No rubbish lying around, all very, very, very good. And I can only explain this, because there are no bins, by the almost enforcement, but not literal. People sort of, they of course have litter and rubbish. There's packaging that comes with food. That's inevitable. But what they do is they pack it in bags. They walk around with bags. They put rubbish in their pockets and they carry it all the way back home and dispose of it in the proper manner there. That's a huge amount of effort though on the individual person. But they seem to have no real complaints about it. They don't really seem to begrudge this. It's what they do, it's what they have been doing, and that's what they will probably continue to do. I think there's a similar problem in Manchester, England right now, and that since 1996, when the IRA, those responsible for a bomb going up in Manchester, no injuries or fatalities, but you know, there was a bomb from a bin, huge explosion, lots of damage to Manchester. As a result, it seems, I can only really connect the dots here, but certainly in Manchester right now there are no bins around the entire city. It's a city with very few bins. I think that's pretty safe to say. But as a result, people just throw rubbish on the floor all the time. You know, and I tend not to, but then again I have less to potentially throw away anyway. But I can definitely see how it happens. And the idea that someone would order a McDonald's takeaway and then carry the remains and the wrapping and the Happy Meal box all the way to their home or place where they lived, that seems an optimistic outlook that would happen. So there's a hell of a lot of rubbish around. I suppose what I want to see is a hell of a lot more bins just about everywhere in the world. That's what I want, because the amount that it would cost to clean up such a filthy street is surely way over in abundance of the cost it would be to hire a guy to come a little bit further out and collect the rubbish. Or maybe not, you see. Maybe such are the regulations behind disposing of rubbish that actually cleaning up after the rubbish has already been dumped on the street is somehow easier. I imagine that might be the case. Yeah, it's an interesting one. And then furthermore, once you get to a more individual level, how do people dispose of rubbish? Well, I think in Japan it's fairly regular. It's unextraordinary. I think it's some people come around once a week and they take your bin away. However, in England, certainly recently, there's been an influx of new laws and regulation behind the premise that it's all for the benefit of the environment, which I'm dubious of, but for the sake of separation at least. There's a bin for the agriculture and grass and that kind of stuff in the garden. There's a bin for general waste. I suppose like kitchen waste, like leftover food and stuff like that. And there's another one for plastics and another for paper and that kind of thing. But where does that end? I mean, you've got like 3 or 4 bins there, and one is expected to have that in the backyard. That's supposed to just lie around forever. And I believe actually that in England the people, the garbage disposal people, the dustmen, I think they have quite a bit of influence as to whether they actually choose to collect the rubbish or not. If the rubbish has not been set out in such a way that meets their standards, if there's too much rubbish out there, if it's not disposed of correctly, if the wheelie bins, which is the most commonly used type of bin in England, if that is overflowing, then they can very easily refuse to take it away. The big thing I take away from the idea of disposing rubbish is there's sort of acknowledgement that okay, it's happening, everybody has to, that's the rule, and so everybody sort of does, and everybody goes along with it, and they do separate it to a large extent, mostly quite well, I would say. But there's the understanding that once the people come and collect it, that they will dispose of it in the correct fashion. But I suspect that once the people come and collect the rubbish from people's houses, I reckon they just dump it all in a big landfill anyway. I haven't got any evidence either way, but I think there's a general sense that, well, I bet they just dump it. And all of this is rather for nothing. Plus, when you think outside of England, when you've got these huge industrial nations that are polluting the atmosphere absolutely all the time to such large levels that recycling in such a way seems rather pointless and frivolous, really. So I'm not so sure. I do my recycling out of a sense of impressing other people. I don't do it for myself. In England I would do it in order to avoid being in trouble about it. But here in Japan I don't recycle that well at all. I don't have too much offending packaging or anything, but I really don't bother that much. I dump it all in one particular way, because in order to follow the rules in the correct fashion would be an obscene amount of effort, frankly. The people go to an obscene amount of effort here. They're quite pernicious about it, to be quite honest. So that's what I think about how to dispose of rubbish. I'm sure it's reasonably similar amongst the Western countries of the First World, but I'd be genuinely interested to know how they do it in other countries. Whether they do just dump it all away, or am I thinking less of them? Perhaps I'm underestimating them. Maybe other countries have got it better. Its ultimate use, I'm not sure, but I guess it's another rule now. And at least, hopefully, if it doesn't serve a really great kind of overall purpose, if it's ultimately pointless, hopefully the person recycling still feels some sense of satisfaction from having done the socially responsible thing, at least to them. Personally, questions around the environment, I don't care too much about the environment. I'm dubious to its legitimacy as a real problem. Yes, there's also the thought that, okay, so the major problems will probably happen when I'm very old or dead, so there is that as well. And I suppose I take the Jeremy Clarkson approach, and I'm dubious to its overall I sort of I'm dubious on the research and the prerogatives and motivation behind the research, and I think it's the environmental problem is used in such a politically harnessed way that it rather leaves a bit of a sour taste, and I don't know, it's too much control. I would quite like the idea of recycling of my own choice, but it's sort of, since it's forced, I feel less obliged really. But there we go. Anyway, those are my thoughts on recycling and garbage disposal, which is a bit of an odd topic, I guess. But my thoughts on it, as ignorant as they may be. Anyway, I'll be back again next time for more Ignorance is Chris.